I think we are all set, so let's start. Can everybody hear me? During the webinar, if you have any question or comment, please type in your question at Q&A or comment at chat in English, please. And no recording, please. Hello, everyone. We have something special done here at Zoom webinar this evening in Japan, morning in Germany. That is Saitama City Foundation for Business Creation SFBC and State of Bavaria Japan Office, Joint Project Webinar 3. Thank you for joining us today. Please let me introduce myself. I'm Kato from SFBC. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your cooperation, and special thanks to State of Bavaria Japan Office. First, we are going to have an opening remarks from Senior Director of SFBC, Mr. Sasaki. Mr. Sasaki, please.
Could you, I'm going to share the slide, okay? Okay. Yes, okay, yeah. Yes, good morning and good evening, everyone in Germany and Japan. My name is Tetsuya Sasaki of Saitama City Foundation for Business Creation. Welcome to the joint webinar with the State of Bavaria Japan Office. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is still widespread not only Japan and Germany, but also all over the world. But I think we can overcome this difficulty by cooperating together to move forward. Today, Mr. Peter Möhring will make a presentation which is titled Strategies for Mitigating Cyber Risks, the Approach of Security Network Munich. Today, a lot of small and mid-sized companies in Japan and Germany joined. Recently, we work at home and use any online tool to communicate with other people due to COVID-19 problem. Security problem is getting serious. Now, we can find how we can be safe in global business. This is the third session of 4 sessions. Please utilize this opportunity to update your knowledge. It has been about 10 years since Saitama and Bavaria began to start to cooperate in the industrial triad. Since then, State of Bavaria Japan Office has helped us since then. And JETRO has also helped us. Last year, Nuremberg City and Saitama City concluded MOU to cooperate in mechatronics, medical device, Industry 4.0, and new energy. So I hope this webinar will make our collaboration stronger and more positive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sasaki. Let's start the webinar now. Strategy for Mitigating Cyber Risks, the Approach of Security Network Munich by Mr. Möhring, General Manager Security Network Munich, Alliance Manager Giesecke&Devrient. Mr. Möhring, would you please start the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning from Munich. Thank you, Kato-san. Thank you, Sasaki-san, for these warm welcoming words. I would also like to thank my colleague, Christian Geltinger in Tokyo, who built the bridge between Munich and Saitama City today. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to join this webinar today and to give you some information and some insights on our approach here at the Security Network Munich, an association of security companies, but also research institutes and universities, as well as enterprises and corporations who are in great need to have some solutions with regard to information and cybersecurity. Yes, I work for a company called Giesecke&Devrient, or we just call it G&D, for many years. G&D has an office in Tokyo, in Shimbashi area near Hibiya Park. I've been there for about 2 years, and was lucky enough to meet many colleagues from Japanese customers and partners. And at the beginning of this talk, I would like to highlight my view in this field of information and cybersecurity. I think that both economies, the German economy as well as the Japanese economy, are actually quite similar in their mix of industries. And being similar in their mix of industries, they are also similarly vulnerable to cyber risks. And that's why I think we can benefit very much from each other by learning our strategies and approaches in dealing with these risks. Of course, everyone who has ever visited Japan knows that it's not only an island that gives, by default, some sensation of protection in a classic way, but that it is a very safe country, a country where security in general was never, maybe didn't have the same sort of urgency like maybe here in Europe or in other parts of the world. Of course, this changes with digital systems that don't know any national borders or oceans who would stop them. But the moment you have those digital systems connected to some kind of networks, the threat is practically everywhere. And I think Japan had to learn that lesson also in the past. And that's why all these efforts to to find the right strategy in protecting your infrastructures, your economies, your companies. So I will start sharing my screen now. And continue from here. I hope you can see the screen. And we go from here. So that's what I said, the cooperation between Saitama City Foundation and Invest in Bavaria, the representation of the state of Bavaria in Japan. And that's what I just mentioned. There was this summer an article in The Economist looking at the cyber threats also in Japan, and making some analysis why these risks are really important. And so if you have interest in reading it, I'm happy to provide it to you. But of course, it's not a Japanese problem. It's a global problem. It's a problem for all the companies, and it's a very it's a problem that doesn't go away. So today I will talk about a brief introduction of the Security Network Munich, then how I see the world today in the context of of course COVID and the political developments, but also what are the threat developments, and later ways of mitigating those cyber risks. The Security Network Munich, as I said, is like a trusted space, a trusted platform with about 85 members. And it is centered in Munich. It was founded in Munich, but it is not limited to companies and organizations from Munich. We do have partners around the globe because we believe the exchange is the first step to work together. So the moment we know each other and we build some trust, we will be able to also find ways of working together and finding that common benefit, which is very crucial and essential in dealing with cyber risks. One important part of this network is the research activities, as well in research institutes and universities, but also in the corporate world. Security technologies, as I will show you later, play an important role in mitigating those cyber risks. It's always a little bit of a race between the attackers and the ones who want to defend against such attacks. We promote this international cooperation. We do have partnerships with similar networks like ours here in Europe, with countries like France, the Netherlands, but also in Scandinavia, Denmark, and Finland. So this, again, is a topic that is involving everyone and affecting everyone, and that's why these kind of network activities help to learn from each other and to act fast, which is also important, especially with digital threats, to avoid bigger damage. Here we see, by the way, one of our activities. It's the Munich Cybersecurity Conference, and here is the EU Commissioner for the Security Union in Europe, Margaritis Skinas from Greece. He spoke, he gave the keynote speech this year at our conference. That conference takes place every year together, sort of the day before the political Munich Security Conference starts. That is the political Munich Security Conference is a well-known and important political event. More than 50 head of states will come to Munich and meet delegations from over 130 countries to exchange on security issues, and more also on cybersecurity issues. This year we had also a delegation from the Japanese government joining that conference, and I hope that next year we will again have a representative from the Japanese government coming to this conference. The world today, I don't know in Japan, but here in Germany, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we lived through an acceleration of digital transformation. Companies needed to send their people away from the offices to remain at home and to work from home. So we have this change to teleworking models, which required equipment and infrastructure, and also protection of those digital tools to make sure that the work can be also managed from home in a secure fashion. And so this is a clear development, which especially also, I don't know in Japan, but in Germany, public entities, public administration, they were, still, depending which part, but many of them were still very much based on files, filing and paper, and in Japan I know the Hanko, so that kind of work style, and which requires people to be in the office and to meet and to pass those documents. And now by passing them digitally, how can you protect that kind of traffic? How can you protect those kind of sensitive information? This is a very important challenge. And mobile devices getting more and more powerful with, having many different functions, and being actually also a combination of many sensors, now also for health aspects and applications, which again also guard many very personal information from those users, and to protect those personal data and very sensitive data. That is also something that needs to be addressed more, because right now there is still not much control of it. The Internet of Things, you know it better than me. Everything gets somehow connected to the internet. Lots of things that make a lot of sense, like the traffic lights, smoke detectors, many components. Of course, cars will be managed also by traffic systems, and so all these things are connected. and but being sort of, you know, these little components. It could be just some semiconductor parts up to airplanes and cars, so, or you know, production facilities, robots and what have you. They all have different you know, software components, different operating systems, different protocols, different ways of communicating and different standards. But once you connect them to some open networks, it gets very, very complicated to protect or to avoid vulnerabilities. We all have heard of those examples and cases that cars have been hacked, and so the vulnerability, the possibility that something can go wrong, not only because someone will attack it, but also because those many systems are connected and then suddenly stop working. You know, you have these system breakdowns, you know, in airports, and sometimes we had some a couple months ago that the train, you know, in the train stations, the train information system broke down, and it was not a hacking problem, it was a problem of the systems itself. So the complexity is something that we have to deal with, and has to be part of our strategies. The move that more and more operations are organized in cloud systems or computation centers, that is also a clear tendency and needs to be understood. So you don't have necessarily all your operations in-house in your, I don't know, little computation center, but you will have it externalized with some service provider, and this is an important aspect also in information cybersecurity. I said political changes this year was tremendous. I mean, Japan is in the middle of this. China, you know, has a very developed into a very pronounced role in the world, on the world stage, where the US seems to get a little bit back from the world stage, and so we see that we have different areas in the world that traditionally used to work together, but now are more and more individually organized, and trying to find the structure and new alliances in you know, managing also their national interests. Digital sovereignty is a topic that is on the agenda of many governments. Here in Europe, we see that the simple fact that most of those big technology companies are not based in Europe but elsewhere, you know, led to the urgency of reconsidering our own, you know, the autonomy in managing our own affairs and in protecting our own businesses, and that is one of the motivations to talk about digital sovereignty. So to be not too dependent on any foreign power in the sort of availability of our critical infrastructures and their functionality, and that is an important part of this discussion. You've probably heard about the developments in the rollout of 5G mobile network systems. So you know, the Americans directly blocked Chinese providers from that kind of rollout, so they're not allowed to provide technology in developing those networks. The European Union is still, you know, struggling to find a formula, and other countries like the UK also follow the American example. So this is also part of the reason why digital sovereignty will be getting more and more important. for our next Munich Cybersecurity Conference in 2021, this will be one of the main topics to discuss. While I'm saying this, we also see a development towards open source. That is maybe one of the solutions to the problem. The more open source software and standards are established, the better we detect vulnerabilities early and fix them. That is the philosophy, that is the idea. So that will be something maybe as part of the solution towards better mitigating those risks. And finally, last but never least, software everywhere. So, you know, although we are good hardware builders and engineers and we build great devices, but everything is controlled by software. And software is, the code is developed by tools, by software, by programming tools, by all kinds of digital tools to help to build those software programs, and that is part of the sort of the reason we are talking here today, because software engineers are not necessarily trained to think of security while they develop their code, and also many of those programs are tremendously long and complex and automatically offer you know, weak points, which later become a door of entry for possible attacks or malware. And so this is important to know, that the way we develop software must be also addressed when we talk about mitigating cyber risks. The threat developments. I mean, you know, I don't want to go too much into it, but whatever happens in our normal, I say normal business and industry, like automatization and the use of AI and machine learning, happens also on the other side, where those groups who live, you know, cybercrime criminals, it's organized like a business as well. So they benefit from the same trends and from the same technology. So there is an automatization of malware attacks. They don't necessarily attack hospitals because they want to attack hospitals. Those malware is riding through the internet and enters wherever there is an open door. And when the hospitals are not protected, then they will enter hospitals and destroy their IT systems. So it's because of automatization. It's not that hackers would want to necessarily hold hospitals ransom. Machine learning based vulnerabilities detection. This is a very new trend that we see. G&D, Giesecke&Devrient, the company I work for, is a smart, among other things, we develop smart cards and smart card operating systems. And you know, smart cards are used for, you know, payment when you go to an ATM machine and get money, or you pay in the store. So very protected products. For many years, we use top of the class security algorithms and cryptography to protect those transactions that are where those cards are being used, or even personal data like on health cards or identity cards. And one way of you know, trying to compromise those cards is by what we call side channel attacks. And side channel attacks are is sort of an eavesdropping of physical you know, physical properties of the card, like, you know, how much electricity or current is running through those through the circuit, the smart card chip. And by, you know, detecting patterns, attackers would want to figure out what the key of the smart card is to be able to uncrypt and break the smart card. And this is now also, so what they use is machine learning algorithms to try to find these patterns. So this is a very serious threat. Crime as a service, I said before, this is an industry by itself. We have state-sponsored actors in the arena. we have read recently about hacking attacks against laboratories who are actually developing vaccines against the pandemic, against the coronavirus, and we believe that that those kind of attacks are also orchestrated by state-sponsored actors. Ransomware is a terrible threat, and it's getting worse by the day. We do think this is something that is difficult to avoid, but the only thing that really helps is, and I will show you later, to find some preventive measures to sort of expect it already and to be prepared. Sophisticated high quality phishing. I read the other day that in the beginning, many years ago, you could easily spot those phishing emails, but now those hackers or criminals hire agencies to really formulate and develop those emails in such a way that it's really hard to know whether they are genuine or not. This goes together with social engineering attacks. So they take the time to find out about those persons, what activities they have through their social media profiles, to be able to find the right topic and the right sort of teasing line in drawing them to click on those phishing mails. Identity theft becomes a very serious problem. We do more and more online. We have government services being transformed also online, and the way to authenticate yourself it becomes very important. And not many countries, or not all countries, have sophisticated national ID systems that would also serve for digital channels. We in Germany, we do have a very sophisticated ID card, a national ID card, very top of the class security. Unfortunately, it has not been really used for online transactions yet, although the technology would be there. But again, it requires much more than just the actual technology. You must set up processes, you must implement them, and you must also, last but not least, convince the citizens to use that kind of technology and to train them. I have, coming back to ransomware, yesterday in a Swiss newspaper, there was this article about what to do when a cyber attack occurs, and they had actually, which is very rare, they showed a threat, a chat between the attackers and the company that was attacked. The company that had about 30,000, computers in different countries. And they were all encrypted by that malware. And now the attackers want $10 million in bitcoins to offer the key so that they can reuse all their computers and equipment. And they write this in a very polite way. And so it's really it looks like a business conversation. I also copied the last line. You're welcome. It's a pleasure to work with professionals. If there will be any question, please feel free to ask. So it's like the customer service of the attackers, of the hackers, talking to the victim and offering all kinds of help. They also offered some advice, what the victim should do to prevent such attacks in the future. And one important part of that list of advices is that the policies of who has access to what system, and should we all have access to all systems, or really only limited access to the systems we really need, and also that access should be managed in such a careful way that hackers cannot automatically, once they're in the system, automatically penetrate the rest of the system. So the idea is really to have always these stoppage points where they cannot continue with some credentials they might have acquired because of the limitation of access rights and admin rights. So this is, for instance, the number 2 here, force force end of administrators' sessions. So it seems that some administrators of IT systems never end their sessions, and of course, if they never ended, then attackers can use that condition to take over the control of IT systems. Mitigating cyber risks, the political. So I have three perspectives: the political, the management perspective, and the technology or technological perspective. The political perspective here, and as Security Network Munich, is to be in dialogue between legislation and policymaker and business. So this is what we do. We regularly are consulted by the government and by government agencies on our advice and our opinion with regard to those different threats. Of course, the role of politicians and the government is to pass laws and to design policies which build the framework, the legal framework and the policy framework for all the actors to be organized and have a clear context. So we have these laws. You have them in Japan. We have them in Europe. The EU Cybersecurity Act. We have also national laws, of course. I quoted here some American law. The CFAA is called the Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and the ECPA is the Electronic Communications Protective Act. I know in Japan you have the UCAL, it's the Unauthorized Computer Access Law. It started already in 2014, and now you have some updates. So, you know, there's always this complaint that the legislation never follows the speed of the actual developments and threats in this digital topics, which is true. But again, we need those legal instruments to be able to enforce also the law and to, you know, and to start using those instruments and really prosecuting also the you know, fraudsters. What is also clear that the national systems alone are not enough. You need international agreements and frameworks and alliances. A good example is the Five Eyes alliance of the former Commonwealth countries, the US, Canada, the UK, of course, and Australia and New Zealand. They kind of agree always what security measures they will take, and also exchange among their agencies information, share information, which is also very important. The NATO has a cyber command, which is, of course, working with all the NATO members. And so this is part of the agenda that we also organize through the Security Network Munich on the Munich Cybersecurity Conference. Yeah, so here you see these different entities, the public entities. You know, we have public agencies and offices. This is an important part of government and political decision making, to set up those agencies, cyber security agencies, information security agencies. We have the data protection agency. So this is absolutely necessary to have also some public institutions to develop those strategies and those norms to you know, bring guidance and support and assistance to the rest of the society. Cyber risks from the management perspective. What I like in Japan when I visit and you go by train, you know, for instance, from Kyoto to Osaka, you see along when you come through those business areas, on the roofs of those, you know, of many companies, the big letters ISO 9000. So ISO 9000 is sort of a proud proof of quality, of successful quality management, and it's exactly that idea that these norms help to set up management processes to improve the underlying topic. So be it quality, be it security or safety. and that's why ISO 27000 is one of those norms. They really help to manage and to bring these security risk measures into practice. This is the importance of these processes. You need to have awareness and programs and training. We do, one of our missions from the Security Network Munich is to create that awareness, and we had a webinar 2 weeks ago where we showed that from the gaming industry, that we could learn and to develop awareness campaigns to incentivize that kind of exercise, because people, at least here in Europe or in Germany, they don't find it very exciting to go to some training on cybersecurity. So it's like an obligation, but it's not really exciting. But if you have this set up in a sort of a interactive role play sort of setting, where you take the identity of the defender, the others will try to attack and find some vulnerabilities to develop emails that are fraud, and the colleagues try to detect them. So this is more engaging, and in the end the awareness is the results are much better. We had a talk by DHL, the courier company, delivery company, and they do this. They have 500,000 employees, and then they use exactly these kind of tools to improve awareness of information and cybersecurity risks. It is a matter of responsibilities. So the C-level, the board level must be involved. They must take cyber risks as serious as they take serious financial risks or logistical risk or production risks. So cyber risks are definitely as serious and as important and need to be treated by the board directly. And also the organizational setup, there must be some direct line to the board to be able to be efficient. It's not the task of the IT department to take care of this. No, it is the task and responsibility of the board. We had on the Munich Cybersecurity Conference the CISO from NTT speaking, and he said it took him so many months to get an appointment with the board to explain why information and cybersecurity is so important. So his challenge was really to get through the board, because the board is always busy and has other things on the agenda, and so that is very important. Of course, you need prevention, emergency planning, and then resilience measures. So how to get up again. So you have to assume that one day or another some kind of attack or problem will occur. You have to assume that, and you have to be prepared. You have to have security copies, physical copies somewhere in a different place, in a secure place. You have to have backup systems and certain policies also, like emergency response teams and that sort of groups to be able to manage a crisis, because it really is a crisis if such attack occurs. And because your communication systems will be down, you cannot communicate by email, and you need to have measures designed before to know what to do. It's similar to any other hazard, fire, or in Japan you have earthquakes and many other problems. So and you have plans and prevention measures to know exactly what to do, and this is the same here. Technological perspective. This is where many of our member companies are active. They develop technologies to help to improve cybersecurity. So I told you before, cryptography is an important element. PQC means post-quantum cryptography. We had the day before yesterday our membership assembly meeting online, and we had a talk on quantum computing. And you know that quantum computing will open a new era of computing technology. And because of the physical properties of quantum computers. The power of calculation increases so much that many of the classical cryptographic protocols and technologies will become obsolete, so they can be easily decrypted. And that's why there is a strong academic research and industry research going on in developing algorithms that are resistant against quantum computing. What is very important with technologies is to develop standards. Only with standards you're able to develop a security for entire systems. My example is always the mobile networks. You know, when we started with GSM network, you know, and now we are talking about 5G networks. We are still sort of UMTS or 4G networks, or sometimes or 3G and 4G. So those networks developed standards from the beginning, from scratch, when they were designed to include security. And that's why the mobile networks were quite robust against those vulnerabilities and attacks. They have been very stable and very safe. And that is because all the involved industry actors and government agencies agreed on those standards and developed those standards from scratch. We see those that work in many areas. There is a strong cooperation, for instance, on industrial automatization between Germany and Japan. The robotics initiative is talking to the Industry 4.0 platform here in Germany to also agree on those kind of standards and security standards, especially to make those interoperable, because those machines, whatever it is, are used everywhere in the world. They multi-factor systems authentication. Not only us, the persons, but all the devices will carry some kind of, identity to be identified in some kind of system, and so it's quite a simple but efficient way to have a multi-factor authentication system. The other day, maybe a month ago, suddenly I get a SMS on a notification on my telephone that says transaction rejected, and I realized that someone wanted to use my credit card data to buy some flowers in Brazil, and I was here in Germany, and so I realized that my credit card data have been somehow compromised, exposed, and someone wanted to use the number of my credit card to buy something. But because I have this multi-factor protection, every time I use my credit card, it will be transferred to my phone so that I agree and confirm these transactions. And if I don't confirm, then the transaction cannot take place. So this is very efficient, and it will also get more important in the future. ID management is part of this question. And one thing that is always overlooked is implementation. If you have the security technologies that are available for many years, and in Japan we have very fine companies who develop those security technologies, but the implementation is as important as the technology. So you have to implement those systems very thoroughly, very exactly. You have to test them. You have to really make sure that they are implemented and you follow all the specifications. So if you just do it half-heartedly, it will not bring the results that you expect. So the implementation is as important as the actual technology. Virtualization is also a very favorite technological approach in protecting our IT systems. Security by design, you've been hearing this many times. So that is clear that we have to understand software engineering must include security from the beginning. So it is paramount. Lifecycle management, you know, all the patches. Every Thursday, Microsoft sends out the patches to fix bugs and security vulnerabilities. This is so software by default is never working perfectly. So you always have to have some active lifecycle management. Many devices and components will be developed by some kind of groups of developers from different countries, and then once this is finished, they disperse and never get together again. So they will never take care of those lifecycle issues because it was a one-time sort of order, and so this is one of the challenges with IoT. Federated trust systems. We are building now Gaia X. I don't know if you heard of it. This is a big framework here in Europe to integrate different domains. You know, the industrial IoT, the industrial internet, but also, for instance, healthcare and municipal services or energy. So all kinds of domains to share data, which can be useful with those different use cases, and that integration requires, of course, some way of developing and implementing trust functions to be able to really understand data sensitive data, and it must be handled in a very careful and protective way, and that is what we mean with trust systems. Biometrics is, it's been there for many years. I know in Japan you've been using biometrics for all kinds of situations, to enter the buildings and or to go to the ATM machine and authenticate yourself to get money. So yeah, it will continue. It will be most likely also a combination of different biometric features, and then they will be verified by your smartphone or by other devices, or a combination of devices. So I'm sure this will go on. The combination of security technologies, this is a typical approach and strategy. We have domain specific technologies. The car industry, the airline industry, they have very high of course, obviously, requirements, and that leads to my next point: safety and security merge. So when you build a car, when you use the brakes, it must stop, and the brakes, there's no way the brakes cannot work. So there is this kind of safety engineering. But now safety and security, and we saw it with the accidents of Boeing, they must be connected. So they're more and more part of the same design and requirements. New generation internet. When the internet was invented, to exchange, I don't know, it was by the U.S. Military originally, but then used by academics to exchange scientific papers. So it was never ever thought to do what it does today. So all the protocols and underlying communication, layers and standards were never ever designed to be secure or in any way cyber proof. And now we realize these vulnerabilities, and the only answer can be to develop a sort of the core, some new protocols and some more functionalities that fulfill the requirements of today, where practically all economies and societies depend on the internet in the end. So coming back to Security Network Munich, so we do engage in dialogue among our members. So practically those three groups: the research group, the industrial security, so the security providers, services, but also products and technologies, and the users, and of course engage with policymakers, governments, and other groups to get the awareness of the topic onto the front page, and to help also to one colleague called it, we always brush our teeth, of course, every day, because we understand that this is necessary for using them for many years, and the same is also true for cyber aspects. So you have to have some basic hygiene, cyber hygiene. What one of the members of the speakers once called it at the security conference, cyber hygiene is what we need. So we contribute to policy making, we foster collaboration among our members and beyond, and we participate in these national and international initiatives. And last but not least, we drive also innovation by research projects, we build consortia who are engaged in those different technological developments. Yeah, so this is, if you're interested, you can go to our web page and you find, for instance, the conference report from this year's conference that it gives a nice summary of the discussions that were held. And again, cyber risks are part of the risk catalog for the management board. I told you before, you need to actively manage those risks. The prevention is absolutely necessary and very helpful in getting up again once some incident occurs. You have to involve everybody, and you have to motivate everybody. That this is a clear lesson. Also a lesson a little bit from the biological virus that we face this year. So we understand that cooperation and sharing and working together is the only way to stop this pandemic. It's the only way, and it's quite similar with digital viruses. So share and work together. The sources I can recommend: there is a monthly newsletter by Bruce Schneier, one of the leading researchers in information and cybersecurity. He was a guest also at our conference 2 years ago. So he has this monthly newsletter called Cryptogram that I can recommend. You can look at threat reports. There are many organizations who publish them. Here I mentioned the ISF, their Information Security Forum from London. They are our partner also in the network. There's ENISA, the European Cybersecurity Agency, or Mandiant, which was bought by FireEye, and they publish also a very valid threat report. You have the recommendations, practical guidelines. I like the ones from the British National Cybersecurity Center, NCSC. You can, they're very hands-on and very practical, and that's why I list them here. We have the technical security standards by those different standardization bodies, ISO, of course, global platform. Also, the Americans are very active, and that's the reason I mentioned them here. Policy making. Just this week, the Aspen Institute and the security group of the Aspen Institute published a paper on policy making for cybersecurity that I can recommend very much. It really is a good summary of all the threat vectors and possible approaches in dealing with these threats, and what frameworks would help to to mitigate those risks. Especially, as I said, the IoT is one part, but also the new generation of internet. So that is also one chapter in that report. Said this, I would like to thank you for your attention this Thursday evening in Japan, morning here in Munich. If you want to contact me, please, you find my details, and I'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you. So, Kaito-san.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Möhring. It was great. And we have some questions, so I pass it to Ms. Yamamoto.
Okay, yeah. Okay, briefly, you have many questions. So the first question regarding ransomware. Do you think that a state should punish the companies who paid for the ransomware threat, to get back their data? Do you think they should be punished or fined?
Right. Honestly, I don't think so. Well, because it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma and it's a circle. The ransomware attacks only work for the criminals if the victims pay, of course, because if the ransomware attackers will never send the key to solve the problem, then no one will pay anyway. So then this whole business model for the criminals will not work. But I understand that my company, if I cannot work and everything is down and practically it means bankruptcy, then I will pay to get my company running. And so it's an emergency. And of course, if there would be a law and to say that ransomware attacks should be not awarded, and the one who pays will be punished. If this works, if you do this in the long run, then the attackers will realize, okay, in Japan, for instance, it is no worth attacking those companies because they will never pay. And then maybe those attacks stop. That is the idea of the lawmakers. Will it work? Will they not pay in secrets if they get attacked? And so this is the problem. And again, if all the companies would have the prevention against ransomware attacks established, then they don't need to pay anyway, because then they just rebuild their systems and they don't need to pay those attackers anyway. So it is only for organizations that are not prepared and suffer that damage who are in that dilemma to think whether they pay or not. And normally, and this is also true, the hackers are not stupid. They decide the amount of money they want to ask according to your abilities. And so normally it is cheaper to pay that ransom attack and fee, and instead of having to pay all the damage yourself in rebuilding or in lost business. So this is also quite sophisticated and well balanced from the attacker side. So I cannot give you a clear answer. If the strategy is long term, and you set up a law and you decide that kind of legislation, yes, then eventually it will work. But you have to enable all the companies and all the organizations to be able to deal with a ransomware attack. That means you have the prevention in place.
Okay, thank you. Just go to the second question. We have a lot of information leakage problem here in Japan, and what is the way for the companies to protect from information leaks? What is the most important way for companies to protect themselves from the information leaks?
Okay, information leaks is a big problem, and it has to do with the management of that information, actually. So we have a law in Europe, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Law or regulation, and that shows a clear path in how you can prevent information leaks. So it starts with what I showed you also in the chat of those ransom guys. So what privileges? Who controls those? Who controls the information? Who has access to it? Is it really necessary that we have that so many people have access to that kind of databases? How do you encrypt those data? How do you so there's cloud providers that have very valid and solid technologies and concepts in really protecting that kind of information and data or sensitive data. So it is both. It's a management topic. You really have to look at it and say who has access to it, who uses it, and also policies how to deal with that those data. There's the example of a colleague who told me he went to a doctor's office, and then they give him a paper so that he has to sign, that he can be contacted also by email, and if they have some test results or something, and he's a very careful guy, so he always gives a different email. So he gives sort of a one-time email, and then realized that this email somehow appears in a completely different context somewhere else. So he realized his doctor's office somehow shared his information, his email, with somebody else. And so he confronted the doctor's office, and they said, "Oh, we gave it to our IT service provider." So and then the IT service provider is doing I don't know what. And so this is a very important part of this managing leakage risks. You have to control who you share it with and why and for what and under what condition, and then I think a great part of the problem could be solved.
Thank you. I know this is really difficult, a difficult question to answer. The next two questions is regarding SMEs. The first one is if SMEs introduce IoT, is it possible to increase the risk? And if that is the case, what is the effective defense, the method to prevent these risks? And related to that, do you think Japanese SMEs are more sort of vulnerable to the cyber security risks than the European peers?
What I can say is that SMEs are, in general, very much at risk. That is the result of several analyses that have been conducted. It's the same here in Europe or in Germany, and maybe also the same in Japan. Why? Because those companies, they have a very lean structure. There's a management, they're responsible for everything, and they're the IT guys. They look at to have the operation running, and that is what they most are focused, so that the actual business is working. So what can help in SMEs to improve their resilience and their managing those risks? Many SMEs are part of a supply chain because they deliver to customers who are larger companies. If you look at, for instance, a company that we have here in Munich, BMW, they have, I don't know, alone in the south of Germany, they have more than 40,000 suppliers, and so those suppliers somehow are connected in those management systems, and the big companies force and help those smaller companies, SMEs, to establish a cyber hygiene standards. So some basic standards to avoid at least very careless situations. So this is already a big step forward in avoiding cyber risk. So that they develop some, set up some standard that following those guidelines in different guidelines from those customers, from the big companies, but also from the government side. So this, and how can they be helped? So it's important that that someone helps them to do it, because they cannot understand it alone. They need someone to on their side to help it, and that is the role also of chambers of commerce, of the IT providers. They normally have IT service providers, and in the end, it's not that difficult. So really, to set up some standards is not that difficult. You look at your system, you say, this is sensitive, this is less sensitive. Let's separate those systems. So this is all. This is not so difficult, and but it has a great effect. And coming to the aspect of IoT, as I told you, IoT is super complex, and again, you have to look at what kind of data is involved, what kind of devices, and can you separate those use cases so that not all that problems will not go and infect also other parts. I think that would be my recommendation, to segmentize, to see really each and every application, how you can manage those, and only with the most necessary data, not with the possible data, but with the necessary data. And one big problem we have with in general with applications is that the security configuration is never active. It's never active. By default, it is not active. And it should be active by default. And if you don't want to have it, you have to deactivate it, but it should be active by default. So that is actually one of the keys maybe in the future to also increase cybersecurity, and also in this kind of new use cases with IoT. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's the best answer I can give.
Thank you. I know these questions are really difficult to answer, and thank you very much for your answers. That has been really informative.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone wants to contact me, you have my details, and I'll be happy to continue the dialogue.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and Q&A, Mr. Möhring. So I hope you enjoyed our webinar.
Yes, thank you. I did. Yes, I hope I did not talk too long. And yeah.
Mr. Möhring, thank you very much. It's a nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well then.
Now, we are ready. Yeah, next one. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed our webinar. And then if you have any other question on this webinar, please send us an email here. We will get back to you later. And then now we are arranging the fourth and final webinar. We will inform you as soon as it's organized. Thank you again for your time.